Again, my name is Renee Carroll-Grate, and I'm with Response. I'm very new to the community here, but I'm not new to work in the community. Working in the community has been my lifelong work, lifelong passion. So I'm hoping that I can take my experience and help the community, Response meet the community's needs. Response provides services for victims of domestic violence as well as sexual assault. We've been doing that work for about 30 years. We primarily serve Pickens County and some of Western Eagle County. We have a mixed population of gender. Probably 95% of our clients that access our services are women. And as it relates to the real world, probably 95% of victims in domestic violence are women. So we're probably seeing a good number of that equation there. As I said, we do have men that we see, which is kind of new and interesting for me. Men started to speak out probably about, or were encouraged to speak out, probably about 10, 15 years ago. So to see that growth, even though it's a small growth, is really encouraging. I worked, prior to coming here, I worked in Texas. So we didn't see a lot of men disclose that issue, probably because of the kind of big, rough, tough cowboy kind of image that Texans tend to carry or adopt. And then after working in Texas, I worked on Cayman Islands. And so that culture also was very different, and probably the male victims did not feel as freely to reach out for help. So saying that, I'm saying that Response here in Roaring Fork Valley has really made an impact on a population that I've seen nationally grow really, really slow. Again, like I said, our primary focus is women or adults. We tend to serve people between the ages of 21 to about 55. That's what we're seeing. Most of our clients are of Caucasian origin, although you're real clear that we have a large population of Hispanics in our community that are consequently underserved. And so I think that while we've done a great job, we being Response, in coordinating our work, we've done that a lot with the community. We've worked with law enforcement very closely, worked with Health and Human Services very closely, and other community organizations. And that's probably our strength. And so we celebrate that, and we'll continue to do that collaborative work. But we've got a little weakness there, and that weakness is serving the community, which has been identified as the underserved community. And one of the ways that we're working to hopefully resolve that is through promotoris. I've been practicing saying that word all night, so I hope I said it correctly. Promotoris, I believe is the correct pronunciation. And that word stems from to begin, to promote. The concept is to take the services to the community by using community members. So it's kind of like train the trainer, if you will, but specifically for domestic violence. One way that we do that is the coalition, Colorado Coalition Against Domestic Violence, has a collaborative effort with Response, and now the shelter in Glenwood Springs has joined us. But initially that collaboration was between Response and the state organization, and they secured a grant where the individual would work in our communities, soliciting, recruiting individuals from the communities that we're trying to serve, sharing with them information about the organization, the services that are available, the issue of domestic violence and sexual assault, and how it impacts the community. In return, the community members will reach out and share that information with other individuals in the community. Quite frankly, I see that as plain grassroots work. And for those of you who look like you may have been in the workforce as long as I have, that's not new to us. Particularly if you've had the opportunity to live outside of the Roaring Fork Valley. This work, and I'm going to take you back just a little bit because I want you to see that it really isn't much different than what we were trying to do or what we did in the 70s. If you remember, for those of you that are that old and have been in the workforce that long, community organizations were struggling with how to serve the underserved communities, but at that time that wasn't the language. I think we used the term how to become pluralistic, how to, remember that? Diversification, and it's still the same. The population was different though. Who were the groups in the population? African Americans. And I remember that because I was a part of that. And I remember going through that with my colleagues, us learning cultural sensitivity and all that wonderful stuff, and then how to take the message or the need or the services back to the community. Well, one thing I want to share with you that I think I see us repeating, and I want to caution you to not make that error. If you think in terms of leadership, and you're always struggling with there's a greater demand than a greater need than there is demand. So you need a lot of stuff, right? But you have very little financial resources. But we're going to try to fix this problem because that's what we do in our work. We're resolutionists. So we're going to fix this problem, and then we find some money. Unfortunately, the money tends to be limited. But nevertheless, we're still going to fix this problem. So we find some money, we hire staff. And typically the staff looks like the culture that we're trying to serve. But guess what, folks? We usually only have one of them. Just one. And I can remember, I'm drawing back on my professional experience. I was 21 years old, a part of a group similar to this, looking at pluralism, diversification of services. And they looked at me and said, well, Renee, how do we get to the African American community? Well, that probably wasn't the term they used. Black community, I think is what we were called then or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, all I knew was what my family offered. I knew what my world consisted of. But nevertheless, I put my little hat on and I charged forward with, I think there were 3 of us, African Americans, that were charged with diversifying and doing this pluralistic work for a city that had at least 20,000 people, So that's what I see happening here. And so I think we have to put more energy, more resources, and more collaboration. I can't really tell you what Prematuras is with the accomplishments they've made because, again, I'm new with the organization. It's just started. Pieces like this take a long time to get off the ground. I can tell you that they use 1 staff member, but the good news is that she's been increased from part-time to now 30 hours a week. That's wonderful. And so what we're looking to do is to share office space with her at Response that'll give us more intimacy with her and then combine our staff member, our resources with some of the work that she's doing. The other piece that we're working on and trying to reach community members is through developing a marketing plan. I honestly believe that past experience shows that you cannot take a flyer and distribute it to the stores or wherever you go and expect people to come. I do believe that if people know about you and they know the benefit that you're serving, they will come. So we're designing a marketing plan for the whole agency, but right now the first piece is for the Hispanic community, identified as our underserved community. And I'm looking forward to implementing this marketing plan. And it's nothing rocket scientist. It's a matter of how do we reach them? Where are the community members? Well, they're at work. So we go to our employers, the employers, and talk to them. We've got to go back to grassroots efforts, in my opinion, for response. And that's what I see us doing with this strategic marketing plan. Our collaboration, I'm really, really proud of it. As I mentioned, we do really, really well there. Probably one of the many strengths that Response has. We'll be rolling out a program called AIR, A-I-R, and I don't know what that means, I forgot. But it is with law enforcement in Pickens County, and we have agreed that every victim of sexual assault and domestic violence who makes a police report will have access to response services. Why is that important? Take a look at the last issue that just came up in the newspaper. And you think about the blame game that's going on. You've read the articles. Perhaps, I'm not saying it's a fact, but perhaps if that young lady had the opportunity to receive services the minute she made the police report, perhaps things wouldn't be perceived by the community the way it is. And that's another story, that's talking about the media and disclosures from different agencies, that kind of thing. But our goal is to make sure that each victim who has been traumatized through the act of sexual assault or domestic violence has the availability of resources, not tomorrow, not 3 days later, but immediately. She won't have to look up the phone number. She won't have to call her neighbor and say, what's the name of that agency that I think works with? We will be there for her. And so I see collaborative efforts like this with other community partners getting our message to community members. So I believe that we'll be doing more of the collaborative piece. We've been working, or will be working with Kathleen doing our girls group, support girls group. And if you think about collaboration, for us, it made a lot of sense. To start a group on our own, we don't have a captive audience. So we'd have to go out and recruit the girls, which means there's time, resources, financial pieces to that. And Jill, many of you know Jill, came up with the idea of talking with Kathleen, and she has a captive audience. And so our message, our prevention services will be delivered as a service to her girls and our girls. So they become not just her girls, our girls. And that's what they are. There are people in the community. And so I think that we have to, again, go back to grassroots and efforts and figure out a way to do this on a collaborative way so that financially we can make an impact and just use all the resources that we possibly could use. And with that, I'm going to close, but I do want to share one tidbit thing with you. I used to work for the Girl Scouts 30 years ago, and 30 years ago in San Diego, California, the Girl Scouts, I'm really proud of them because they got it right. 30 years ago, they did a national study, and that national study told them that in 30 years, our country's going to look different. It talked about the proportion of brown people to Anglos in the United States. And at first, I think I was 26 or something like that, and I couldn't figure out, why are we doing this? But what happened with that information, if you look at the Girl Scouts handbook, You see brown girls now, you see Anglo girls, you see African American girls, you see people who have physical impairments. And so they took that information and positioned their organization so that they could be prepared to serve the community. Well, the Girl Scouts has a lot of money, so we maybe can or can't do that. But I would just like to say, take a look at the mottos out there that have been successful in doing this work. Thank you.